6 years in the making, episode 200 of the Press Box Hat Trick is finally here. I'm your host, Peter Vryonis. Today I'm joined by Vincent Morello.
Hello.
Julian MacKenzie.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Tristan D'Amours.
Hey, thanks for pronouncing it in French.
Of course. Had to go all out. Alex Perez, whose house we were at
roll
today.
the R on the Perez.
Alex Perez.
And yeah, no, my pleasure. I'm glad you can all be here.
Thank you for the hospitality. Olivier Neven.
What's up?
Ireland Compton.
Hey, what's up?
The coolest name I've ever heard.
Thanks.
Safia Ahmad.
Hi.
Thank you. John and Ngala.
Okay. You
Okay.
got it. You got it.
Of course.
You
I'm
got
cultured.
it.
Buddy, you sound
I'm
nervous.
cultured. I'm cool.
I'm cultured, I'm cool.
I'm cultured. I'm cool.
Elias Grigoriadis.
Thank you for the only guy that can pronounce it right.
I'm just good like that, I guess. And Harrison
It's in the gene.
Rahajason, who couldn't make it today, who might call in later, depending on what time.
He's a loose cannon. He might even call mid-show. So
Yeah, you never
We'll see
know.
how it
You
goes.
never
Never
know.
know,
It'd be the
Keeps you on your
first
toes.
caller in Press Box Hat Trick history, so we'll take it. So Vince, Tristan, and Julian started this podcast in 2015, and it's withstood the test of time. It's still going on today. I'm the current host. I won't be the last. And today we're just going to look back at some of the best memories that we've had over the Press Box Hat Trick and how it all started. So, Tristan, I want to get your take on it. How did it all start? How did it all come about?
Well, first I want to say hi to that cardinal over there. I mean, this is live. We're doing it live.
We're doing
Uh,
it in the
it's
summer.
We're really
started-
in this right now.
It started honestly by bugging J-Mac and Vinny. That's essentially how it started. I wanted to do a show. I was always interested in doing radio, and podcasting is an easy way to get yourself into radio. So after a while, I guess I was pissing them off enough for us to start something. And then Vince just pulled up his iPhone and we just started recording. Thank God those first 20 episodes aren't there, because you don't want to watch. You don't want to listen to that.
How bad? I mean, does anyone remember how bad they actually were, or what we talked about?
It was bad, but good for our standards.
I mean,
so-
yeah, exactly, right? We didn't know any better.
You got to start somewhere, you know?
That's it, right? Like the floor, and then you work your way up to like a table, and then you go to the ceiling.
Then eventually you're verified on Twitter.
I guess that's just me, but like,
We made
yeah.
it approximately 2 minutes.
Jesus Christ.
But I will say there were probably some crazy bloopers on those 21st episodes.
Oh,
for sure.
Like, also just like a lot of clips where no one was watching.
what do you remember
No.
from the first 20? Any particular moment?
Like,
from
I
Well,
remember-
the one thing
What's a
was,
cringy moment? that you
was
guys
the one thing
The whole
was
20.
how most of the intros we used to do was we used to cut some clips, and those are from the first 20.
Yeah.
There was one time I forgot to say, or I said the wrong episode number, and Vince instantly called me out on it with no restraint. And I looked pretty bad.
Well, I had
on
to
that
make
one.
sure you got the right episode number.
Yeah. There's two certainties.
What if this is actually episode 201?
I mean, it's probably
It's very
that.
possible.
I mean, technically, with all the .5s we have, I mean, this might be like 204 or something.
I mean, if it
Let's
is...
not get technical right now. This is
Yeah,
episode
look.
200. We're not going to think too hard
That's
about
not
that.
true.
When
The
did we-
spirit is
When
here.
did we start doing? Because we always say, us three, that the podcast really took off when we did those episodes with those guests from the John Wilson Sports Marketing Conference. I'm trying to remember where in the timeline we started those. That's when
That was,
honestly, like that's when we really realized, okay, like the podcast is not just like three guys like
well, that was
messing
the
around.
same year. That would have been so.
That,
You guys started the first episode in February 2015,
Right.
and I think JMSM was in the fall of
it was
2015.
October.
October.
So it was later
Yeah.
that year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It was
I
a steady progression
Yeah.
into that. We needed to, cut our teeth for like 20 shows.
It's also conveniently when you also Perez also started making appearances in the podcast
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, I mean, I had first arrived at the link. I mean, as probably all of you around this table were like incredibly shy and nervous.
I wasn't.
And I was super shy and nervous, and that's when I met you and Vinny. I believe it was at a workshop. I think Jesse Fife and Tito Curtis had a workshop on feature writing. And then you had mentioned like, oh, by the way, we have a podcast, like a sports podcast, if you want to join and everything. And that's kind of what got me coming back. And as for JMSM, actually, it was thanks to Tristan that I had the opportunity to go, because I remember you guys had this whole episode on JMSM and how you guys were so excited for the sports marketing event, and how Bob Leonarduzzi was going to be there. Who is he still owner of the Whitecaps, or was at the time.
He's no longer the president.
No longer the
He
president.
got the boot.
There was Bill Manning
got a
at
life.
the time as well, who was.
He ended up getting a life.
He got a life.
Jeez.
You want to add context to that?
That's a
I
pull.
feel like you two
I feel like
are
we
the
should add
best
that
people to
context.
explain
But
that
I mean-
context of that quote.
I mean, we'll get to it, but yeah, no. Essentially, Tristan messaged me and he's like, do you want to come to JMSM?" And I was like, only like a month or
Can't
two
say
in.
no.
I was like, you're inviting me to come to JMSM
Yeah.
when you guys are like hyped for it. Like, I'm not nearly as experienced enough. And then Julian texted me. I did the whole thing, and we ended up going, and we ended up interviewing Bill Manning from TFC.
Toronto FC president, yeah.
And I remember that being like just absolutely amazing for someone new to come in and have that opportunity. I remember admiring Tristan a lot in that interview, in both those interviews that we did along with Bob Lenarduzzi. And I remember like that was my first taste of the link. And I was like, yo, this is absolutely fucking amazing.
Do you remember the
that I get to do this like less than 2 months into being a contributor for the sports team?
small just like addition here? Do you remember how terrible the quality of the Bill Manning interview was?
Oh, boy.
Like
Oh,
it was
it was
unplayable. We
horrible.
couldn't do it.
And there was a lot of good quotes in that one
Yeah.
too. A lot of good questions, a lot of good quotes. But to get to Bob Lenarduzzi, I think Bob Lenarduzzi was like our favorite.
That was
our favorite one.
That was a salvageable interview
And
actually.
I forget if it was me or Tristan. We had asked a question on promotion relegation because that was always like a topic that Tristan and I would discuss on MLS needing promotion relegation, and that the North American kind of like way of doing it was honestly still for me is weird and backwards. But anyways, I can go all day about that. So we asked a question about promotion relegation, and then Leonard Doozy went on this whole spiel, and then he ended off his the answer going like, if people think we should do things different, like MLS should do things differently, they should get a life. Or to them, I say, get a life, is what he would say. And like Tristan and I were just so taken aback by that moment. But I don't know. Do you have more to say about JMSM? I don't want to like hog the mic or anything on it.
No, but I think that's it. I think that's one thing. Hopefully you guys do it as well, and that's what I wanted to bring too as my time at the link is, just do whatever you want. Like, this is the perfect platform to aim high and try and get stuff you want to do.
Make mistakes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If there's one place to make mistakes, it's right here. And if there's if people are passionate about anything, like so many of you guys pitch stuff to me, like Safia pitched stuff to me, and I was like, hey, go
She
right
pitched stuff to me
ahead.
too.
Absolutely, do all of that. Perez did the same thing, and he ended up hosting the show. So that is what I take back, what I take away from this show is I'm glad that it's still continuing, and I'm glad you guys wanted bring guests on and interview people you want to interview, and hopefully you have fun with it as well. Because at the end of the day, like,
I have a blast, man. This is
there you go.
This is sick.
Yeah.
That's the
It's sick.
that's awesome that we were able to do our thing and then leave it to other people, and they were able to do their thing, and then they left it to other people to then do their thing. I think that's beautiful.
I gotta credit Olivier. He's the one that got me into it. He was the sports editor like before me. Tough time to be a sports editor also because there were no sports going on.
Damn.
So
This
he,
man still filled the section.
yeah, he
almost every week.
he was the
he
MVP.
almost hit-
MVP. Round of
no
applause.
sports
Nice.
going on. This man
Pandemic
found
sports.
feature after feature,
Take
and I'm
it,
like,
take it.
I was running the news section while Ollie was in sports, and I'm seeing some of the pictures. I'm like, Jesus Christ! Like, I don't know where he finds all this.
I've never seen so many golf and fishing articles.
Hey.
It was
Hey,
unbelievable.
I will not take the golf slide.
Golf
Yeah.
is amazing.
The
Golf is
stuff,
sick.
The golf stuff did good. I don't remember any fishing articles. I know. What
Well,
you're
Shout out to
whatever.
Major League
you know.
Fishing. Yes.
There was one fishing article I remember, and I was just like, run with it, and like all the content was great. You
I
got
don't
some
even
great
remember that.
writers out
You
there.
did what you could, and,
No, but
you,
thank God for the
killed it.
podcast though, because that was like at
That
least
was fun.
one show every week. To fill it up, especially when it was tough. But yeah, it was a lot of fun to do. Like, it was a way for for me who like did not necessarily have a platform yet to discuss like pro sports to do it freely and like on my own time, and then I would bring on guests who people I thought knew about certain things. I'll bring you on for basketball. We'd been on Tristan to talk about soccer, more specifically the Impact formerly.
How many impact mentions on this podcast?
What was
That's
it? We're
the
at
first
20
one.
minutes in.
we're 10
Yeah, we
minutes in.
haven't
10 minutes
10
in. Wow, that's
one Impact.
That's one.
That's one.
But yeah, and then we also, brought some fun guests on. I got Brock McGillis, who's an advocate for the LGBTQ community in sports, and especially in hockey. So stuff like that was a lot of fun, and it's a great medium. And it's nice to see you not only take it on but also expand it and put it on YouTube and now with the video, so we can check you out while we're listening.
I always felt so bad because I'd push for Ollie to apply to be sports, because back when John and I were running things, he was probably one of our most like consistent beat writers. He'd be taking, like, he covered women's soccer, but he was doing all kinds of stuff and he was covering all these beats. So I'm like, Ollie, try for sports. You have a handle on the beat, and covering Stingers is obviously the main part of our mandate. And then like a week after he gets elected, no sports.
Yeah.
For the entire year.
Yeah, that's it. I was really looking forward to that because I think covering sports with the Stingers games was so much fun. Like, I loved it, and then I was so excited to kind of be like on top of that and have other people do it, and and then it did not happen.
We got that Rocket League coverage though.
So Rocket League became our big carried us, and I think I made quite a name for those Rocket League for our players. So
Jeez, you really had it the toughest out of all of us.
Yeah, I'd love to say he might have had the most impressive tenure of any sports editor here.
So hopefully someone's listening, ESPN.
Maybe.
He's got our cosign.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
He continued our tradition though. Esports are real sports.
Oh yeah.
Sure.
Do we go
Never
into
forget.
that? Do we go into
No,
that? No, you don't want to do that.
I don't know.
All right,
The
fine.
esports teams though love having the coverage. They really appreciate it,
Yeah.
and I hope you guys continue that this year because they really appreciate it.
I hope
And
they're
it's
still
fun.
listening. They used to listen
Yeah.
to us.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
had them as a guest.
Yeah,
I think
that's
that was
it.
the
Yeah.
first ever guest I brought on, and Pressbox was the esports team, and
They're
they were
also a
super
great
down
interview.
for it. Like they
They're
were
good.
awesome
Sure,
to have
sure.
as an interview. So I'm glad that they're still around.
That's the
on
cool thing,
PBHT.
man. Like, talking to student athletes and really getting their personalities, man. Like, you get some really cool people like around the school who are just they're interesting people to talk to. Like, I think of like Fred Rajat from the rugby team when we were there. Like, she's a great person, and she was just like a great interview when we had her on. I mean, the circumstances of the interview that we had her on for Pressbox Hat Trick, she had complained about the lack of coverage for women's sports, particularly for her sport, women's rugby, compared to the men's side. And she was very insightful, and she didn't hold back on her criticisms. And we took those to heart, especially. So I think, and I know she's one example, but there's a lot of other different athletes. Trenton Miller as well was playing on the Stingers as their quarterback at one point. There's a lot of different young people at Concordia who you take the time to talk to them, put a mic in their face, they'll give you some really good quotes. Olivier Haynes was on the men's hockey team as well.
Berudon in his story.
Yep. Well, I mean, Safia, your story. I mean, it's really incredible work you did with Phil. I don't know if you could speak more to that, but he was really good.
Yeah, he was great. I mean, he had basically shared his struggle with OCD and how he was coping with that, which is like, that conversation is still even more relevant today with athletes struggling with mental health and talking about it. So I think, like Julian said, I think talking to these student athletes is like the one thing I miss the most about being a journalist. I think once I stopped talking to these athletes, I was like, I don't know, I felt a little less interested. For me, I look back in my time at the Link as one of the best times of my, I guess, career, if you will, because there was just something about it, and I think it's because we were all kind of striving for the same thing. We're all just equally as motivated, and we wanted to find the stories. The right people were there at the right time, like to find you, Julian, Alex, Tristan, Vince. Like Alex, I was pretty shy when I joined the Link, very shy. And I remember the first time I had to record something, I think was with you, Tristan. And I don't know if you remember this, but I think I blacked out. You had me on for PBHT for a segment to talk about an interview I did with I think Yvan Cournoyer.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and I was so nervous because I didn't really know you. I was like, oh my god, what is he gonna think about me? I better not say the wrong word. So I was really nervous, but you were so kind, and so I just think it was a really nice environment. Whereas you go into the working world and you're not always gonna find that. So
Also,
it's a very special time.
It's a good point, Safia, that you touched on the people who were there. I just want to shout out Elias, because when I was sports editor, I had my running mate here, Elias, and we had a blast. And I'm so happy that I had somebody that it was like kind of Batman and Robin in a way,
Yeah.
you know, because
Who was Batman?
Yeah,
That's-
you open
that's-
yourself up with that comparison. You open yourself up. Who's Batman? Who's Robin?
Who's
But
Batman?
honestly, it really did vary on the week, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
one
true,
week,
and
like,
that's what I loved about it. That's what I
the
love
thing,
about
though.
it.
Like,
'Cause-
one week,
Okay.
you know,
Good
I
answer.
would
All right.
I'd be doing a lot of stuff. Next week, John would be on
Yeah.
top of a lot of stuff. And, like, I think that's the important part, you know, especially that back when there was a sports online as print
Yeah.
sports editor, you know, now, you know, Ollie and Peter have kind of had to merge the two. But back then, you know, working in tandem was so, like,
it was important. Yeah,
it was important because, you know, at the end of the day, you have to be able to pick up with someone else thought because we all have lives, we all have shit to do.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you know, one week when you're swamped with exams or work or
Yeah.
what have you, you know, it's you gotta have
Mhm.
good communication, and, you know, from the get go, I feel like
Yeah.
you know, we hit it off, and, you know, it's nice. Like, for example, like, one of the biggest things is because I got into the link when Tristan was coordinating, and it was Alex and Harrison.
Yeah.
And much like everyone, you know, I walked down like, what am I doing here? Like, everyone here is like, the first pitch meeting I went by. I still remember what happened. I'm pretty sure, like, I blacked out because the entire pitch meeting went by so fast. I'm like, wait, what happened? And everyone seemed to, like, completely understand, and I was like, you just said hi like 2 seconds ago. And so then we were, you know, they kind of, like, not forced me, but they're like, you're coming to pitch, right? And I'm like, yeah, I guess. And they're like, no, you're good. Come to pitch. And I was like, okay, like, how do you, like, I don't know anything. You guys all are all so, like,
Mhm.
you know, comfortable. And the second you understand that, like, we're all idiots, man. Like we're all, like, I think the biggest point of the sports section is that you're very easy to talk to. We're very approachable, and, like, we're always looking for people to come in. And I'll never forget this. At the end of that year's election, Harrison turns to me and goes, like, you're gonna be a sports editor next year. I'm like, you fucking what?
Yeah, that's a Harrison.
Yeah.
thing.
What the hell are you
That's
talking
very
about?
Harrison.
Yeah,
Like, I'm not gonna be sports editor. Shut up. And, you know,
It
I
happened.
was.
A year
But
later.
It's that thing. It's that thing. I said thing.
You're a road runner, too.
Toronto vodka.
yeah.
He's
it-
always got a Raptors jersey next to me, so it's by
You're a
osmosis.
Okay, sir.
But yeah, it's sort of just like this surreal thing where I was just like, all right, I guess I'm sports editor now. And then you kind of hop in, and you're like, all right, now you kind of get thrown in the deep end with no floaties. Kind of just like what Alex was talking about going into the sports marketing conference. It's kind of just like, it's very much, all right, you're here, go for it. And I think that's the best way to learn because, you know,
That's what it's like in the real world.
Exactly.
They're
Yeah.
gonna throw you into the deep end.
'Cause,
as
like-
you're
and
saying,
you
John.
have to swim.
exactly.
Yeah.
But
J-
Yeah.
it's intimidating.
J-School is important
Yeah,
because
it's
J-School
really
will teach you, like, the
intimidating.
fundamentals,
Yeah.
right? But if you don't, in some way, shape, or form, while you're still at Concordia, use I want to say, like, the looseness of everything to your advantage to actually get into these awkward positions and sort of learn, then by the time you head out into the real world, you're just like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So, you know, getting thrown into the deep end with no floaties was great. Like, the first game I covered, I wasn't on the media list because they had a mix up at the Sepsum. And I called Harrison, like, oh, what's going on? He's like, just go in. I was like, okay. So I just went in, and they lost 7-4. So I had to talk to the angriest Rex Sutton I'd ever seen in my life. So I went down the first year, and Rex Sutton was, because they were winning 4-2 at halftime, and they lost 7-4.
Oh boy.
So I'm like,
We're talking soccer.
Yeah, sorry, I should have
Yeah,
specified
that was hard.
men's
Yeah,
soccer, right?
when you said Greg
Jeez.
Sutton, I was like, okay, I
Yeah,
get
I
it.
should have
Oh,
specified
yeah.
men's soccer,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
they were beating UDM, who's, you know, always the perennial one of the best teams in the country, and they were winning 4-2 at half. They lost 7-4. So I went down to go see Rex Sun, and he just, like, glared at me, and he just kept walking. I was like,
Oh.
this is my first ever
Oh,
story
geez,
ever with the
sucks.
link. I
Probably not
never-
the right time to go talk. to.
Literally. So I had never done
But
anything
that's what it's
like
like, though, man. Like, it's not
It
like
was terrifying.
I remember, like, when I was covering basketball and stuff, and, like, they would have games. Well, the men's basketball team would have bad games, and, like, the assistant coach is now the head coach now, Rasko Popovich.
Mhm.
He'd sometimes, like, go to, like, me and the other, like, basketball reporters, be like, guys, today, I don't know if there's going to be a good story for you guys, but, like, it's not about, like, praising the team when they're doing, just when they're doing good. When they're doing bad, there's some fun in writing stories about how they're trying to get out of not being bad. Like,
They're also not the PR team.
that's it.
Yeah.
That's what they
I
don't
think
always
some people get
understand.
lost in that sometimes, where they just think you're around the team, and it's your first experience with it, and you're thinking, oh, you got sure on the team. I think what happens is if you're around the team enough, like maybe you do develop kind of like an affinity for certain players you get comfortable with, but you don't want to get to a point where you're rooting for them to win,
Yeah.
and you're only going to be there for them to win. Like there's something to, you know, writing about a losing streak or writing about when things get bad and seeing about how they get out of it. And maybe, you know, the players or the coaches won't be as, like, I don't know, cooperative in that, but there's always someone who is willing to say something.
I mean, it is always easier to interview players when they're on a 5-game winning streak than when they just.
It's always going to be
Yeah.
like that, but you also, but for a young reporter, you need that too.
That's true.
But I found the coaches were always pretty good though, especially like at Concordia and talking. I know like you know, anytime I spoke to Greg Sutton, he was always, you know, willing to talk and would always give great quotes.
Yeah.
And sometimes spoke a bit too much. I have to cut a lot of the you know, the quotes down. But even, you know, the hockey coach, Coach Alemant, with Vasko Popovic too, he's always been good. You know, the student athletes are good too, but I think sometimes they're surprised that they're being interviewed. They're like, like, who am I? You know, why do you
It's
want to talk
because
to me?
no one watches them. That's the
Exactly.
thing.
So
I think it's getting a little better,
yeah,
but they're always
Except for the
surprised.
hockey players. Like, hockey players are kind of used to it
Of, yeah.
because, you know, they played at a
Played
high
in the
level,
queue
right?
or
But, like,
whatever.
Yeah.
but they're also like really cool too. Like especially like I remember talking to a couple of the hockey guys, and it's like, you know, it's a really cool. It's almost like a normal conversation. It's not like, and that's something, you know, a good thing to kind of get used to, get out of your system like early on while you're doing like youth sports, because, you know, I'm sure, you know, when you move on to professional athletes and stuff, it's not gonna be like that, right? Unless you develop a really good relationship with them. So like, you know, enjoy like those interactions with these student athletes and these coaches now, and kind of get the feeling of what they're like and talking to them, and then, you know, that'll set you up well for the future and kind of give you a sense of what it would be like.
There's also one point you mentioned, Julian, where my first, because I covered basketball, and my first interaction with Roscoe was pretty interesting, because the first thing he told me was, one of the first things he said was, "Oh, I hope you're gonna come back." Paraphrasing.
Yeah.
So, what what stood out to me was just consistency. So make sure you're there for the right reasons, and make sure you're disciplined and you know what you're doing. And then the coach might have, you know, he'll trust you. So.
Yeah.
That's one thing I really wanted to, you know, put to the forefront in my reporting, to make, like, also be at the games, just be consistent and just do your job properly. And you might get some good quotes. Rascal's gonna see you and he's gonna be like, "Oh, this guy's serious. I like him." And then he'll open up. Whether it's a bad game, good game, whether you lose 7-3, he's gonna be like, "Okay, well, you're here. You showed up. Just keep showing up, and then you'll get really good quotes."
If you're a familiar face, then you know,
Yeah.
they'll end up trusting you. And if they see you all the time, they even expect you after games and stuff. Like,
Yeah,
they're gonna
it
be
gets to
cool
that
with
point, and then
know,
you
so,
develop
Exactly.
yeah, and
a
then,
really good
yeah,
relationship.
like, not to pile with the Greg Sutton stories, but I went to go cover a game at where they played McGill, and they lost 4-0, and I had a half-hour conversation with him in the rain, and we spoke for half an hour in the rain
That's insane.
about the game, and, you know, so it just goes to show, like, you know, you get FaceTime and you build a relationship, and they're willing to talk to you, even if, you know, you're gonna get, you know, pneumonia or some shit.
But that's it, man. Like, I mean, from what I remember from when I was there and seeing some of the people who obviously are not here at this table, but were trying to pitch stories to us. And sometimes and I don't know how it is, like, for Peter, you now, but, like, you'll see the people who are trying to be like, "Oh, I want to write something about, like, the Canadians, or I want to write something about, like, pro sports now." And, like, I guess there's some merit to that, but you're not getting that same experience as you would
No.
writing about youth sports. And I hope people who go to J school, especially at Concordia, and they eventually go to the Link, or even the other student press, the Concordian. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna throw shade like someone. We're cool. It's no beef. I hope people realize the merit of covering youth sports athletes, not just for obviously the allure of saying you covered a team, but just for your own personal development. If you want to be in journalism, like, there's no better training ground than being a beat reporter for a youth sports team. And I've seen it, like, in the States, where, like, it's obviously a big deal with the way they value NCAA and the attention that student journalists there pour out to those student athletes. In a way, I kind of wish the culture was a little different here, but was at least similar to that here. But I also think that, you know, from what we were able to do, we did the most of it. We made the most of it.
Yeah.
So
The
yeah,
closest we
yeah.
get to that fanfare is football, right? Like, football gets televised. You
Yeah.
know, everything else is.
It gets the most money.
Everything.
Yeah, that too.
Exactly.
That
right?
too.
I remember the first rugby game I covered. I didn't even have to pay to get in. There was no press. I just
No.
walked into
Yeah.
the field. I was like, all right,
You're there.
you know. So yeah.
And those teams are good. Like, the
Those teams are
Concordia, like,
sick,
men,
man.
they're excellent
So good.
teams.
Concordia rugby.
Like,
Yeah,
when Tristan and I were there, like I'm pretty sure they were the only ones who were going to win anything.
The
Yeah.
the only championship I've ever covered was
Men's
the
rugby.
very first
Yeah.
playoff run I've ever covered
Yo.
in men's rugby.
I just want a small anecdote here. Like, this is no shade to the photo people. I imagine it's probably still a struggle nowadays to get photo people to take photos for games and stuff.
Shout out Caroline Marsh.
Yeah.
She
Caroline.
is
Caroline,
obsessed
we love
She
you.
with
is.
sports
Yeah.
photo. She saved John and my ass
Oh.
so much. Saved all these ass. Gonna save Peter's. Like she came in and she like
Man.
She'd be
played
like,
it.
yeah, I'll go to the basketball
Yeah.
game, and then I'll hop
I'll
over to
take
rugby, and then I'll go
It
back
was
in.
unbelievable.
See, that's awesome.
I'll take
Yeah.
every. Yeah,
Because the photographers we had, God bless them, they were really great. But I think they kind of just saw sports as just like whatever, just a sports game. You can get away with taking like 1 or 2 photos or a couple photos in the game, and you leave at halftime. Or the photos you took earlier in the year, like, all right, that should be enough. You can just use a file photo for a game.
Mhm.
But for Tristan, like he was covering that men's rugby run the year that he did, and the guy was covering the photos, was doing photos for that game. Like he almost left, and that was a game that like Concordia was like down. I forget by how much, but like at one point, like they thought
Well,
they were
they
gonna.
forced overtime.
They
and then
forced
they
overtime
won.
with a very late try.
Yeah.
And, like, if our photographer had left when we thought he was going to leave, like, we would have never gotten that photo. And the cover photo from Tristan's story is the guy diving for the try. It's like one of the best photos you'll see.
Mm-hmm.
And it ended up being our cover of that. And,
Still
like,
framed.
yeah,
Still framed,
like,
yeah.
I don't know. Like, I wish, not to put grievances, or not to put gripes out there, but, like,
Do it.
I just wish, I wish, like, during our time there, like, some of the photographers were taking photos, like, they could have been a bit more, like,
Yeah.
wish they would have, just like how we see the value of covering youth sports and the stories that are there. I wish that energy was also reflected from the photographers, but also at the same time, you can't expect them to have that.
So yeah, that's my
Yeah.
question. How do you bring that to light? How do you tell somebody this is important when that person doesn't see that?
You just
Like,
kind of have to, like, you just have to have that moment with the photographer if you know them. Like, just be like, hey, like, this is a big game.
Mhm.
You know, get a shot at this, get a shot at that. I probably could have been a lot better with it when I was there. I'm thinking about it now, what I
Yeah.
would do now.
Yeah, hindsight.
But that's not to say that, like, every photographer there was bad. Like, Sean Michaud was great. Matt Gary's, who took photos.
He's
was
excellent.
Matt
Yeah.
Gary's is
Awesome.
clutch. He took photos even when we covered the Vanier Cup when it was at Molson Stadium in 2015. There's a list of other people as well who were really great. And again, it's not shade. It's just there definitely was different expectations with photographers when I was there, and I would love to see it get to a point where sports gets taken a bit more seriously.
I think it's
for the
also
game.
like because no one cares about the Stingers. Like when I got to Concordia, I was like, there's no part of me that wants to cover the Stingers ever. Like I wanted to write, and I was like, I want to write about the Habs and like all this, all the major sports
Yeah.
teams. And then finally, I think you had sent out like a pitch email, like, okay, we got this game, and I was like, fine, like I'll do it. And then I went, and I was hooked. So I think it's like a matter of getting them to do it once and be like, yeah, I know you're probably going into this thinking that this is gonna suck, but everyone who does it once enjoys it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think if you're into sports.
But like
Mhm.
building on Tristan's rugby thing, one of my favorite link coverages was when you covered nationals. You and
Ireland.
Caroline covered nationals, and you were like, "I'm not going to class." Like,
yeah,
you know,
I was like,
I am
no, bye.
I am at every game if you need me. And I was like, John and I were like,
They put me to work at that too. Concordia was like, "Can you do the scoreboard?"
What
Oh,
the
really?
hell, really?
Yeah.
I was
That
like,
was
"Yeah,
awesome.
Really?
Catherine."
Catherine Grace.
Catherine Grace.
Shout out to
She
She was
Catherine
like,
Grace.
"Yeah, I
Catherine
need
Grace,
someone
PR
to
person for
do
the
the
Stingers, yeah.
score sheet. Can you do the score sheet while you're here?" And I was like, "All right, sure."
Wow, they really put you to work.
we'd be getting like updates, like we'd be getting articles and like even just like coverage of the day. Like even if the Stingers weren't playing, she'd just like you just throw in.
I
Like,
had
articles.
so much fun with that.
It was
Honestly,
awesome.
covering men's rugby was like the highlight of my time at the link. I met so many great people, so many players, and like it's fun because the more time you spend around, you get to pick and choose the people you know who are going to give you a good interview,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and you can leave the people who don't want to talk to alone. With the exception to the coach, because every time there would be the end of the game, Craig Beamer would look at me and he would be like, "Yeah, I know you're coming for me," and I'd be like, "Yeah, I'm coming for you."
Dude, that guy was my math teacher in high school.
No
Really?
way.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my god.
He was assistant coach the year that the Stingers won the championship I was talking about, and I just saw him. I'm like, yo, you're my math teacher. What? Like,
It was kind of there.
and then he became the head coach. So, kudos to him.
Sorry to interrupt, guys, but somebody started mowing the lawn, just like we called.
Oh my God,
told
we
you,
did
I
call
called
that
it.
all.
Yeah.
I think it makes for a nice ambiance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Is this the first time that we record PBHT outdoors?
Well, for
I
me,
get-
for me,
It's kind of like the
Yeah,
Winter
for
Classic.
me.
The
Yeah.
attempt that
Yeah.
Tristan and I made.
Sorry.
At least he's not right
So
next to
many
me.
We
years
recorded
ago.
half a podcast, and then someone started mowing them, but the next.
Yeah, the next door
next
neighbor
door.
started
Yeah,
mowing
this
the
is
lawn.
like
This is
far
far
in the
enough.
distance.
Yeah.
That's
This is
fine.
like 2 houses down in the
It's
back.
ambient sound.
this is a, yeah, it's
what
a
they teach
good
us in
like
radio. You gotta
background
have
noise.
But going back to Ireland, you just skipping class and just covering this, I think
the
that's
dream.
the best. It's the dream, and that's the best experience you're gonna get.
Yeah.
Anything I learned in class,
Exactly.
maybe 2
Class.
classes were relevant to my understanding and how like to function in the real world
Mhm.
as a journalist. But like working at the lane, covering these games, doing all this stuff, like I'm not an advocate for skipping school, but like if you have to
But-
make a choice, you're gonna get better experience.
And the profs understand
Covering
that
stuff.
too as well. I
Yeah.
think at
Yeah.
J school at Concordia at least, I would be like, hey, I'm gonna go do this thing. Can I leave early? And they'd
Yeah.
be like, yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Like you're not skipping to just like
no,
goof off.
like
you're
it's for a
working.
purpose.
Yeah.
That reminds me of when I went to cover the CFL combine at Concordia while we were in
Yes.
newsroom.
Oh
And-
my God!
and
Yeah.
I switched. Like someone else was had to cover the combine for newsroom, and I'm like, no, can we please switch? I have to take photos for the link. So I walked out, took photos, and the teacher's like, Vince, don't tell me you left to take photos. And I'm like, I didn't.
Where I think we're doubly laughing because the loud
No,
mower
yeah,
also got
yeah.
louder.
But yeah, I would do that all the time at Concordia. I would tell my teachers, I have to, like, I'm going to walk out like 10 minutes into class. I'm really sorry I have to do an interview. Like, sorry. And just walk back in.
Newsroom,
afterwards.
by the way, radio newsroom. I think it's the most important class you can
100%.
take as a J
Oh,
school.
Yeah.
100%.
For sure.
It's the best class you can take. I
Most
don't know.
stressful.
I don't remember anything from
That's
Drill.
why it's
I don't remember anything
Oh,
from
yeah,
Drawer
yeah.
205.
No?
No, nothing.
Is
You
that
know-
the law class?
No, that's
No, that's history
That's
of journalism.
216.
Oh.
No, there's a law class.
There is a law class.
The
Yeah.
law
Yes.
class is pretty tough,
216
too.
with
216.
Shout out Alan Conter.
Shout out Janice
It's
Tibbetts.
my guy.
Yeah.
Extensions on
Now
extensions.
Carlton.
Down at Carlton. Yes.
Still at Carlton.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I've always believed that you learn as much as you can in the first year and a half of J school, and after that it's
Yeah.
kind of just not phoning it in, obviously, but it's kind of just doing the same stuff. And
Until you get to
we would have first years that spent 3 months at the link writing, and then I'd have someone in my year that's like a third year that's about to graduate, and they come in and they're like, the disparity between the first year's work is so much better than someone who's been the 3 years at J school, and I'm just looking at this like I almost beg people in my year to work in student media, be it CUTV, CJLO,
Yeah.
Concordian, or the link, because if you don't, you are so many steps behind,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? Like doing internships is good and all, but like going into an internship having done student media gives you such a leg up.
But that's
No.
the thing. Even in internships, they're gonna look for student media. So
Exactly.
if
Yeah.
you don't
Yeah.
do it,
Exactly, right? Because
You're
if you
not,
apply to stuff, you're not gonna be like, here's
Here's
this
this.
assignment I did that was like graded. It's like no, like
no, but what did you do?
having 3 sets of eyes look at it makes it 1,000 times better than like someone just grading it. Then you're like, okay, and then you just like
Yeah.
store it in your computer.
100%.
Okay. All right.
My guy.
Bye.
Shout out to Kathy.
Yeah, shout out to my mom.
Yeah.
Who's going for a walk right now.
But like, I think it's also important to recognize that even if you decide partway through your J school experience, or even after the fact that you don't necessarily want to follow a path of journalism,
Yeah.
the link teaches you so many transferable skills
Yeah.
that you can use in all kinds of different fields, and like, you find former linkies everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere. And like, you go in somewhere and you're like, oh, I was at the link. They're like, oh yeah, I remember the link when I went to Concordia, or like people who were on masthead and like contributing.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah. That's
that experience is so invaluable, and
Yeah.
those connections that
And
you make.
I've realized that value. So I'm a teaching assistant now at Summit School, and the whole time during that job interview, and I kind of went into that job interview like completely blind, and I was like, whatever, like I'll just try to talk myself up as best as I can. And the whole entire interview, I was using my experience as an editor, just throughout the whole entire thing, just saying, being an editor is kind of similar to being a teacher, except you're in that small little gray area where you're teaching yourself and then teaching others what you're being taught from others who are also still learning. So I'm learning from JMac, who's still being taught some things. I'm learning, and I'm trying to bring that to someone else. And it's just like the whole entire time during that job interview, I was like, when I was an editor, I would coach and teach others while I'm being taught. And I always thought that was like an interesting way to look at it. And I remember even having a discussion with former EIC, Laura Beeston, right?
Yeah.
Former EIC, Laura Beeston.
That's an
who
OG.
I think
Current
is
board member.
still on the board, yeah. And I was talking to her about, I had resigned from the board of directors when I got the job, and I was telling her about this like teaching position I have, and I love it so much, and it's kind of like changed my direction in my career. And I remember even using the link as reference the whole time, and she's like, it's insane how like transferable these skills are.
Yeah.
And she's not a journalist either. I believe she's working in comms.
Yeah.
And I've always felt when I was at the link itself, I personally always felt that there was this pressure, like, okay, I'm here and I need to be a journalist. If I'm working as a journalist, I need to be a journalist. And I remember always thinking, like, anytime someone had this like alternate career path for me, I was like, no, I want to be a journalist. I'm going to be stubborn with this, and I'm going to write, and this is going to be my career. And then like I was so stubborn to it that I wasn't even looking at how the industry is kind of fucked up right now, and how places like the CBC, as like amazing as they are in gaining experience, is they're constantly going through casuals all the time with no stability whatsoever, and that contracts are like so hard to come by. And you look at people like Matt D'Amours, who during your time, Julian, and yours as well, Vince, and I believe when you were a contributor too, Tristan, was this amazing
Yes, they're related.
This amazing news
Tristan and Matt are
contributor.
related, yes.
This amazing news contributor who made his name off protest coverage and doing multimedia stuff, and now I believe now he's earned a contract, and deservedly so, at the CBC. So all to say, like, it took me a while to realize that maybe the industry is a bit too wonky for me right now, and I needed more stability myself. And I'm completely blessed what the skills that the link brought me, and I don't think I'd be as good as a teacher that I feel that I am if it wasn't for being an editor at the link. And it's building off what Ireland said, those skills are incredibly transferable. And if there's any future contributor or anyone listening, is that there's no pressure to be a reporter or a graphic designer, or photographer, or videographer just because you're in student media. There's so many things that you learn there that can excel you in any sort of career path as a creative.
Can I add two things to that, if that's okay? The first point I want to bring up, it's kind of like looking at the other side of what you're saying, in that you're connecting with someone and realizing, hey, they're not necessarily in the field of journalism. And you're absolutely right. There is that expectation that's there. I'm going to flip it on its head and look at it on the other side, where there needs to be a bit, or I don't know how other people really felt about it, but if you have an opportunity to connect with someone who was at the link and is in the field of journalism, like, do that. Because one other thing that's out there in the field is that you basically got to know people to get ahead in certain places. Like I can point to at least one writing gig that I had last year that I got because a former EIC, Julia Wolf, works at the publication and reached out to me and was like, hey, would you want to do this? This was when I was writing at 538. Like, that's a thing. That's very much out there. And it doesn't necessarily have to be for the biggest publication in the world. It could be like, I don't know how big Reader's Digest is anymore, but that's also an option. But like, I think the fact that you're able to connect with people who were there well before your time, and if you can continue to keep up with those people, they might be able to help you out if you're looking for work. And the second thing I wanted to bring up is, like, I think almost everyone here, with the exception of Safia, was an editor at some point. And you brought up Matt D'Amours, and that made me realize that, like, Matt D'Amours was a really good contributor here, who took the time to put together the news podcast, The Download, was there for contributing for protest coverage. Safia put together a brilliant feature on Feel You Don't. It was a constant contributor to the Press Box Hat Trick podcast. I don't, like, it's not just like, if you get involved in student media, you don't necessarily have to rise to being an editor or the editor-in-chief to make yourself known. If you're just involved in any way, you might just feel comfortable just, I just want to contribute every now and then and write stories or do podcasts or do something. Like, that's good too. You don't have to necessarily rise the ranks and be the editor-in-chief. You don't have to be the sports editor. You don't have to be coordinating editor. If you're just there and you give yourself that opportunity to work, and you do good work, you could put yourself in a position where you could benefit. And Safia and Matt are two people who I think are perfect examples of this.
Those people are the real heroes.
Well, look, I was in my first year. I just finished my first year in J school, and a lot of people, a lot of students, myself included, we all feel this is what we have to do. This is all we could do with a degree in journalism or with our experience that we have. But it does open a lot more doors. My people skills improved, all that stuff, and I just became a lot better just with working with the link. I didn't learn shit in school, nothing. I didn't even go to class, I still had a good GPA.
That man put that on wax.
Yeah, I did.
He let me know.
I did, but
You gotta go to class.
I didn't. You didn't have to. I learned more getting actual experience and doing all this stuff, and that's for the better. And it actually opened up a lot more avenues than you'd think. This isn't it. This doesn't have to be your end goal. You could do a lot more.
In newsroom, again, building on that, it is the most important class that you'll take in your 3 years of J school. Shout out Paul Gott, by the way, because also he's one of the most frank people there. He speaks his mind, and honestly, when we asked him, a couple of us asked him at the end of radio newsroom when the semester was winding down, people were considering, because it's his second year, so you're looking at, what am I doing when I graduate? People ask him should I do the diploma program or the master's program for journalism, or do I go into the field? And he straight up told us any experience you get from an internship is 1,000 times more valuable if you want to work in the field than anything you'll learn in the 2 years of the diploma program.
Yeah.
Right, and that rings true with student media, with internships. Getting that is because we work in a very practical field, right? We work in very knowing stuff, knowing basics is very important, but you really learn by going places. And again, I like this analogy, deep end with no floaties, because you learn by immersing yourself in the situation, and then only by screwing. I remember my first article, the Sepsim 74 article. I opened the Google Doc after it had gone through. It was 2 rounds of edits, and it was littered with comments, and I almost had a breakdown because I'm I am the worst, because it was just there's stuff to fix, right? But that's the thing, you only learn by making mistakes.
Yeah. So
that's why that analogy is so important, because you don't learn in the cushion of academia, right? Because there, they'll grade your assignment, this is what you fix, okay, come back next time and get another grade. No, you have to learn proactively and then actually work on it immediately afterwards. Don't wait 3 or 4 weeks for your next assignment. Do your next assignment, can I get it next week? Or can I get another one tomorrow?
I thought I was good when I first started. And
you are good.
I thought I was good right away.
Yeah.
And I sent in an article to Olivier. He had to call me.
Oh,
I remember that.
He had to call me and say, "Bro, this is not how we do things."
I remember that.
And it showed me, it's fuck, I really need to start doing more and actually getting real experience, because school is just not enough to learn. You actually got to go out and step outside the comfort zone.
40 at J School is about to be we heard Press Box Hat-Trick podcast. They flamed us. We need to revise the curriculum.
Or just stay as
and it was online.
It
was all remote.
I should mention this though. You're never as good as you think you are, and you're never as bad as.
Yeah,
that's true.
That's true.
As
always somewhere in the middle.
Always bring in the words of wisdom.
But it's also good that instead of taking that feedback and being "Whoa, screw you," I think I'm still good. You recognize that there was some improvement you need to do,
there
and you're taking
definitely
that steps to do that. So that's a credit to you.
I think it also helped that we already knew each other. We were comfortable with each other. We know each other for a while. But I knew that how into it you are, and how good you can be. And listen, when I had first started in J school too, I thought I could write, and then I learned very simple things like how to write a lead, and then just by practicing getting it, because there's only so many ways you can write an article. So practicing and doing that, you kind of get a feel for it. And at one point it becomes instinctive, like second nature.
Exactly.
So you reach that point eventually, but the first time, like it's like everybody's first time. You know, I called you because I knew I could, because I knew you'd take it the right way.
Yeah,
I wouldn't
yeah.
just do that with anyone. I saw potential in you. I knew you would get this
Appreciate
point,
it.
So.
You guys thought you were good. Damn, I was terrified to send my piece. To
I feel like everybody.
Jeez.
I feel like because like I thought I was okay, and then
I thought you'd never call me back.
Oh, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Leave my
At the
number.
rate that like we desperately want contributors to come back, like there are people who like the right. Like,
Arguably, though, I was an idiot. So
no, but like you were good. You were good. Like I always look at when you came in, Vince came in, John Cook, who I think is an incredible writer. Laurel alone, who didn't necessarily write, but she contributed layout and graphics and stuff. Like there were a whole bunch of people who came around that time. I always kind of look at y'all as like a kind of golden generation because there were so many of you guys who came in and filled in so many roles, and the trickle down effect from that on in terms of the people you've been able to like lure in after the fact, like it's amazing, it's incredible. So no, I never thought you were like bad at all. I've always thought you were getting better. At one point, I looked at you as like, damn, this is like our like when Vince and I were editors, like Tristan's like our best like contributor. Like he's that dude. So like, yeah, I never really thought.
Thanks for
bad.
stroking the ego.
I mean, yeah, you know, that's kind of what we do. But yeah, man, like I always found with like the contributors that we got, and with when it came to like teaching them stuff, like there's some people who get it. Obviously, there's some people who don't get it as well. But it also just speaks to the fact that as much as the link is a place where you can take the time to learn for yourself, there's also an emphasis on the teaching aspect as well. That's why we have the workshops, right? That's why we have that, and whenever you have the one-on-one time with a writer as an editor, that's also good as well. And you know, I'd like to think that all of us at some point, well, most of us at some point, have been in that position where we're able to impart some kind of wisdom. And I think the people we were imparting that on to took it for the better. So,
yeah. Also, don't be afraid to take your contrib to like a coffee shop and
yeah,
Yeah.
that happens.
yeah.
That does happen.
Couldn't really do that before
Oh.
though.
Yeah. Over Zoom.
Wow,
basically.
I just gotta say, we really didn't really talk that much about sports.
I
We
know.
haven't talked about sports.
We said we wouldn't,
Yeah,
and
we said we
we didn't.
That's
Yeah.
really
We
impressive.
did it.
I thought like someone at some point was gonna like break.
This
Like,
was-
Giannis won a championship.
This was 47 minutes of
Well, I
just
did now. But
talking.
How long have we gone?
47 minutes.
I'm appalled it took 47 minutes to remind you guys that the Milwaukee Bucks are world champions.
They are.
Yeah,
Who?
he's the best player in the
They're
NBA.
champions of the world. Yeah.
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 In all of basketball.
Because there's two Greeks on the team and they're world champions.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, like the NBA is the biggest.
Hold up.
Oh no way.
We got someone on
Yeah,
the
this
line.
is
No
my
way.
turn.
Is
We
that
got
Got him.
someone on the line. Yo,
Oh
Harrison,
my God.
I'm literally working.
you're literally working. All I see.
The best thing I've ever read from the link. I'm willing to put it like, if not the best,
I
like
already know
top
what
3,
you're
top
talking about.
5, but like it's when he talked to Dikembe Mutombo.
That
That
was
whole
incredible.
story, like
Yeah, that
of
was
him
incredible.
like scrambling to get to the interview and having Dikembe Mutombo touch his like space bar, and he has like the gif of him doing it. Like just read that whole story. Like it's somewhere in the archives of the link. It's one of the best things I've
I
ever
want you
read.
guys to know. I want you guys to know that I was playing MLB The Show 21. Couple words. I really didn't know anyone when I got the link, and then like Alex and Tristan and J-Mac and Vince and Safia and all the people that were there at the time, which is I named them all. They were very, 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 very nice to me, and I didn't think that I deserved that much kindness, but they were very nice to me, and they really gave me the chance. They really gave me a chance. They gave me a lot of chances because I fucked up a couple times. I did a couple like I didn't know what I was doing things a couple times. So they gave me like more chances than I would have given me, to be honest. So because I wasn't making it happen. And that's some like I you know like I guess I got inspired by reading different things, by reading the people that I was working with and other things, whatever. At the time, I got inspired to sort of like write a different style of article, which I guess was noticeable because it was different. And then Tristan really gave me the chance. Like he really, really gave me the chance. He had no idea if I would make it happen, and he was like, "Come on the podcast. Like, we give you the chance to talk about baseball and basketball at the Stingers," which is like, okay. and yeah, and then like from there I gained more experience. I wasn't necessarily good at the beginning, but I gained more experience.
That's true. You were the
I think that-
only one that covered the baseball team with such regularity.
Yeah.
Cover the baseball team. I did cover the baseball team. It was a pleasure to cover the baseball team because I love baseball, as you guys probably know. I got some. Okay. Yeah, I'll be right with you.
Oh my god. That was not his boss, was it?
That's his boss?
That was not.
Is that your boss?
No, that's Gaston, my colleague.
John, your face.
We thought that was your boss. He's
No, my boss is not here.
You should have seen John's face.
Hey, yo.
like, no, that's not your boss.
Right, to be dead.
What?
Hey, dead on arrival. You wouldn't even see me anymore. It'd be like over from this. It'd be like, whoa.
Yeah, thank God for that.
So yeah.
But yeah, Harrison, shout out to you for that. Shout out to you for throwing a bunch of spaghetti on the wall.
I was actually saying something. That was actually leading somewhere, but God knows where it was leading now. Like, it's over. It's too late now. You guys were probably gonna hear like the heartfelt Harrison speech of the century, and you guys get nothing. You guys get nothing. Fuck. The sickest trick of them all.
There's no one quite like Harrison Rahajason.
Shut up.
Man. Oh man.
So what are you guys up to? Alex, what snacks did you provide?
What are we up to? Are you kidding
What?
me?
What was the question? Wait, what did you ask me?
What kind of snacks did you provide for these fine people?
So I only bought the pizza. Olivier brought some Tim Hortons donuts. My pool just went on. And Ireland brought some cupcakes that I accidentally dropped on the floor.
And the cheesecake.
And we have cheesecake. Peter brought Yaya's best cheesecake.
Oh, we definitely have that cheesecake after
I
this.
don't want to say anything about that last part, but the rest sounds like you made it happen for me.
You don't like cheesecake?
I don't know, but the thing about when you dropped it on the floor. That's
Oh.
what I heard.
Oh yeah. Well, it was still in the Tupperware.
Okay.
They did once
No
say
harm.
PBHT 200.
This is like the
Wow.
They no longer
it's like
say
the broken
anything.
pen all over again.
You just broke my pen.
Oh man.
We didn't even mention any like Team North America stuff or Team Europe.
Oh
Alright.
my god.
Sounds like
Team
a setup.
Some of Europe.
We're doing all right, Harrison. What are you having for? What are you eating?
Fuck. Tonight, I don't really know. I'm gonna eat later at my friend's house when we're playing the show 21.
Are you giving promo to MLB The Show 21? Do you have a deal with them? Sponsorship?
Coupon code?
It's
Can
like
you let
Sony
me know if they're doing a
or
copy for the
MLB
Switch?
paying you or something. It's not on Switch.
I know. I'm very upset about that.
Later when we're gonna be playing, we're probably gonna order something. I don't really know what. But probably yesterday we gave the chance to La Maison de la Poutine. Wait, hold your thoughts. And it wasn't bad. It was actually pretty good. Like we gave it a chance and they came through. They made it happen. So we might give them another chance tonight. There you go.
Make it
Now
happen.
you can
And that's just a metaphor for the link. We're
Yeah.
just giving people chances.
you give the chance and maybe they make it happen. Maybe they don't make it happen.
Buddy, thanks so much for hopping on, man.
No problem. It doesn't look like I have any work to do, to be honest.
Well, stay on. Stick around.
Then stay on
around.
then.
Stick around.
Fine.
Stick around.
If I had to go get some food, I'd just put my phone down and come back and grab it again. You know what I'm saying? Once everything's been served, once everyone is satisfied,
Are you on a bike right now?
That's the important thing that we have to do here.
Are you on a bike right now?
No, I'm just spinning around on a thing.
You're spinning around on what?
I'm just spinning around like Kylie Minogue in "Come Into My World" video.
Oh, okay.
Why are you spinning around?
I don't know, man.
The reference. Wow.
That was really.
Yeah, that's a deep
I don't know
cut.
how it feels. Yeah, that was out of
That is a
left.
deep
That
cut.
was a
Kylie
B-side,
Minogue.
yeah.
What? That's not even that deep of a cut. You guys are just missing out on what's good. It's like,
Maybe we're just blessed. Who knows?
That's Harrison's
not even,
speak. Oh
it's
god.
not my fault that I have good taste. You know what I'm saying? I've been telling you guys for a long time. Nobody's listening to me. Nobody
You've
gives
been
me
telling
the
us
chance,
about
except for
Kylie
you guys.
Minogue for a long time.
Yeah.
For a long
Apparently.
time, Harrison.
I've been talking about Kylie Minogue for a long time. Like you guys know that that's true. Like
Isn't
I've
that
never
what you
not
just
talked
said?
about Kylie Minogue. It's always
This is
been on
exactly what
front of my
Tristan just
mind.
said.
All right.
Okay.
we're not gonna. You guys are not gonna sit there and say that I don't fucking care about Kylie Minogue because I do.
No,
you
no one was saying
Harrison,
that.
no one said
No,
that.
it sounded like you guys were saying that. And
No.
No one is
opposite.
doubting your
Kylie
fandom
Minogue.
for Kylie
Minogue.
Kylie Minogue.
good. I wanted that to be clear.
Yeah, no, it's clear. It's very much clear. You definitely made it clear.
I did make it clear. So there you go. Yeah. So what did Tristan say? It was the PBHT was all about giving people chances. Yeah, totally. It's all about giving people chances. Because like a lot of times they do good things, you know. That's all I
Sometimes
can
we
say.
fuck up, and it's fine.
Like Harrison
Sometimes-
said, sometimes we don't make it happen, and I just cut you off. I'm sorry.
Yes! It finally happened.
I was waiting.
Vince
I
cut
thought you
off
were-
Tristan.
I thought you were
planned
gonna
it,
do it
didn't
like
you?
No, I
way
didn't.
before.
That was unintentional.
It
No,
literally,
that was
I think the fact that it only took an hour is pretty impressive.
It's
Yeah.
because Vince would always cut me off whenever I would start the show. He would, you know.
Well, at a certain point, I would do it on purpose.
I mean, it felt like it. It started feeling like it was
we-
just, you know, we were just having fun.
Is that the funniest running joke from the show?
Me cutting Tristan off?
Yeah.
What about Tough Times?
Tough
Tough
Times is pretty
Times.
bad.
Yeah. Tough times
Which
go. We
ended up
even made a
being
whole intro
segment
and
for a
everything.
little while.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
need to find the bingo board from when we did.
If you go on Facebook Live, we'll find it.
You're gonna have to scroll for that one.
Maybe not.
Yeah,
Let's
it's
see.
gonna be a-
I'll see if I can find
There
the
There
bingo
aren't
board.
that many
while.
videos on
When was
the
the last
Facebook
time
page
the
from
link
what I
went
know.
live on Facebook for PBHT?
Probably. Well, I don't know about
It
you.
might have been when it was supposed to be Tristan's last episode.
Yeah, and then we.
Yeah,
ugh,
that got
was a
deleted by me.
disappointment.
Sorry.
You didn't
You're
make
the
it
guy
happen.
who deleted it.
Didn't make it happen.
I fucked that one up. I was uploading it while I was sleeping.
It wasn't your fault. It wasn't your fault.
It like objectively was. But anyway, that's not
Okay, I think okay.
losing by 4. That's great.
Oh,
Marcus
okay.
Brooks.
It
This is
probably
gonna be an
also was the
issue.
loudest show we recorded.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
It
Yeah.
was genuinely loud.
I found the video with the bingo board,
What?
You
It
What?
took you like a minute.
Yeah.
but the bingo board is
like
pretty far,
Oh, yeah.
so it's kind of tough for me to tell when it's there.
You tell us when it's too long.
Yeah,
by
so
the
are we
way.
off the
It's
rails, or-
pretty long.
Yeah.
man.
You're gonna-
You wrap it up when you want to wrap
Yeah,
it
you
up.
wrap
It's
it
your
up when-
show now.
Look,
Wrap
I
it
know,
up,
I know, but you guys were doing your thing. I didn't want to interrupt.
More
He
following
came
you.
on.
We're,
Host
we're,
guy,
we're
damn it.
following you.
This
tell
is your
us-
boat now, man.
Yeah, we're on.
I guess.
We're just guests
I
on
guess.
your ship right now. Like.
It's a little intimidating. I'm not
You
gonna
gotta
lie.
remember, man. Like,
run this place,
it's
you just
only
live
you
here.
gotta remember, dude. Like, we're just people. We're just people.
No, I know. I'm
No, I
just
get it,
joking.
but like,
Some of us are verified on
Well,
Twitter, some
you're
aren't.
not.
okay,
I
like,
mean,
sure,
I get
okay,
it.
but
You're
like,
a verified Twitter user.
Local celebrity, Julian
oh,
MacKenzie.
no, let's not do that again. No, but at the end of the
You're
day,
not just a person. You're not.
I'm a person. I'm a
Oh,
damn person.
That check mark
Here's the
means
thing.
you're better than
That it
Here's
does.
the thing,
it
right?
does.
When I go to like my grandma and talk to her about my day, she doesn't give a damn about me being verified. She doesn't know what that is.
Your grandmother doesn't have Twitter.
Well, that's
so-
on your
Yeah,
grandma.
that's
bro.
what- but that's
Somebody
my
said you were
point.
on Twitter.
But that's my point. Like,
Grandma doesn't pay for a subscription to the Athletic.
I gotta pay to read
Wow,
that
you're-
stuff. Yeah.
that's a
Grandma
problem.
doesn't have that link. She doesn't have that.
No, she does no. But the
There's a
ultimate point.
promo code. How come I don't
Use
get it?
promo
Oh, yeah,
code
they-
JMAC for 30% off.
Yeah, you're telling me I get 30% off
Yeah,
the
Athletic
Athletic.
has
I-
promos,
I
like,
was-
every second.
It sounded
I'll take
like
it.
that. I was like,
Point.
wait,
You
prescription.
can
The
just log
point-
into Matt's account. That's fine.
The point I was trying to say is that like at the end of the day, we're all just
I
people
know.
who want to like get into sports or if we just love sports in some way. And like it doesn't matter what our online presence is or stuff that we do or whatever. Like who
Or
cares?
how many,
Like,
10,000 followers.
It's easy for you to
So
say.
humble.
don't, just shut up. Like it's just whatever, bro. Like at the end of the day, like I was just like you trying to
Nah,
make it
yeah.
in the shit, man. Like
Yeah.
you know, we all can connect with each other in that level. We all at one point didn't know any better, and the first person we sent our copy to tore it to shreds, and then we built ourselves up and got better. And now we are either on track. Well, yeah, we're all on track to having some kind of promising career, whether it's in sports journalism or sports media, or even if it's not working out that way, we're making something of ourselves, and that's what's the great thing about PBHT and the link. Like, even if you're not in journalism, you know, it gives you an opportunity to make something of yourself. And I think the fact that PBHT was able to unite us all here together, like, that's a testament to
Yeah.
it.
We are the look at us.
Wow.
It got us to
Drop the
Laval, and that's
It
saying
got us to
something.
Laval.
For the record, Laval is a nice place to live. I'm sorry, Harrison. Laval is a nice place to live.
Why
So
you
when
out
are
here-
you moving?
Why you out here? Why
That's
you out
not
here
true.
capping for Laval?
Because it's a nice place to live.
You
got
so
an
you
offer?
moving here?
You guys are too
Pretty
hard on
You
Laval.
moving to Laval?
No, definitely not. But
You dated somebody here? What's going on?
no.
Oh, it has to be that.
It's got
Oh.
Yeah, you
Vinny's simping now. Hold up.
Yeah, you sipping for Laval. There's a
What's
reason
wrong with
for it.
Laval? Our boy Perez lives here.
I
The
actually-
I
podcast
live
is
5
too
minutes
long. I
away,
can't
too.
talk about everything wrong with Laval.
I actually miss Laval.
No, see, they've brainwashed you into thinking you miss
No,
Laval.
I
You don't.
like. I spent a
Dude, you're from the West. It's not much better.
I never
It's
said
not
it
an
was
upgrade.
great,
It's
minute
not an
now.
Someone
upgrade.
stood up for
Wait a
Laval.
minute now.
It's not
Somebody
an
said
upgrade.
it.
At
It's
no
true.
Someone
point.
said it.
At no
That's
point.
amazing.
The audio
At no
levels.
point. Yeah, sorry for the levels in your ear. At no point
That was
did I
Did you see
vouch-
that?
Yeah, sorry.
At no point did I vouch for West Island. At no
Oh.
point. They're both garbage.
Look,
Okay,
Julian's words were nice words to end on. So why
Yeah.
don't we do that?
Okay,
That's
cool.
what I was
This
gonna
was
say.
a blast.
Quite the quote.
This was a blast,
This was
and
Fun.
thank you all for being here today. It was amazing. I won't be the last sports editor. I won't be the last host of the Press Box Hat Trick.
Well, I hope not.
Yeah.
Well,
Let it
I,
die.
You have
We
somebody.
gotta
Yeah,
come back for episode
I gotta
100.
keep it.
You're
Gotta
responsible.
keep it.
I wasn't
Gotta
even
keep
thinking
it
just for
alive.
press box. I mean, just for the link. Could you imagine something happened to the link?
Oh.
Let's not even go that
Yeah.
far.
Yeah.
Let's just
Let's
let's
look ahead.
let's just
If we
let's
survive
just cap this
2020,
off.
then
All right,
that's
guys.
see you guys at 250.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
great.
If we survive
Make it to 10,
2020,
10
then
years.
Yeah, we could do anything.
Damn, at 2 fit, like with the
Can I
number
see the
of
faces
hosts,
of
we're
horror
gonna it's gonna
movies
be a
like
gala.
Buckingham,
At some point, it's
It's
gonna be.
What's wrong with having a
It's
gala?
gonna be a whole
It's gonna be a black
symposium.
tie affair.
Yeah.
With suits
All right.
and everything.
Let's say goodbye. Peace.